The city never slept, but its shadows did. Under the cold blue lights of alien towers, the alleys were full of silence, broken machines, and forgotten souls. Mark walked slowly, his boots splashing through the dirty water that ran down the street. He was just a human scavenger, nothing more. On this alien world, humans were not welcome. They were weak, slow, and unwanted. But Mark didn't care. He only cared about surviving one more day. He carried a small light and an old metal bag. Every night he searched through the trash piles of the alien city, collecting broken metal pieces, old machine parts, or anything that could be sold for a few credits. It wasn't much, but it kept him alive. As he turned into a narrow alley, he heard something strange, a sound soft, weak, like a whimper. He stopped. His eyes moved toward a pile of old containers. The sound came again, a tiny cry, almost like a scared animal. "Hello?" Mark said quietly, no answer. Only silence and the dripping of dirty water. He raised his light and slowly stepped forward. Between two metal boxes, he saw a small shape, curled up, shaking. When he moved closer, his heart froze. It wasn't an animal. It was a little girl. She was small, maybe 8 or 9 years old, her skin pale with a strange silver-blue tone, her hair tangled, and her clothes torn apart. Her big silver eyes looked at him with fear. Around her neck was a metal collar that blinked with a red light. "Hey," Mark whispered, keeping his voice soft. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl pressed herself against the wall, shaking. "Please don't tell my stepmother," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please don't take me back," Mark frowned. "Your stepmother? What's your name?" The girl didn't answer. Her lips trembled. The collar around her neck buzzed and she winced in pain. Mark could see small burn marks on her skin where the metal touched it. His stomach turned. That collar wasn't jewelry, it was a control device. "Who did this to you?" he asked quietly. She looked at him again, her eyes full of tears. "She says I'm broken, useless, not real family." Mark felt something inside him twist. He had seen many cruel things on this planet, but never a child like her left to starve and shiver in the dark. He looked at her small hands, thin, scratched and shaking. He reached into his bag and took out a small food bar. He broke it in half and placed it slowly on the ground between them. "It's safe," he said. "Eat." The girl hesitated, staring at the food. Then slowly she crawled forward, still watching him, and grabbed it. She ate fast, almost afraid someone would take it from her. Mark could see she hadn't eaten in days. When she finished, she looked up again. "Why are you helping me?" Mark smiled sadly. "Because no one helped me when I needed it." The wind howled through the alley. Far away, a patrol drone flew by, scanning the area with red beams. Mark knew he shouldn't stay long. If anyone saw him with an alien child, especially one with a slave collar, they would both be arrested or worse. He looked down at her again. "You can't stay here. It's not safe." She shook her head quickly. "If I go back, she'll hurt me again." Mark took a deep breath. He was a poor scavenger. He had no family, no protection, no power. But something in her eyes, so scared, so lonely, made him forget all of that. He reached out his hand slowly. "Come with me." The girl hesitated, then placed her small hand in his. Her fingers were cold like ice. "Let's get you somewhere warm," he said softly. As they walked out of the alley, Mark pulled his coat around her tiny shoulders. The city lights flickered above them like distant stars. The little girl looked up at him and whispered, "What's your name?" "Mark," he said. "What's yours?" She looked down, her voice barely a breath. "Lyra." The name sounded beautiful, soft like a forgotten song. Before they reached the main street, Mark heard the faint hum of engines overhead. He looked up and froze. Hovering above the rooftops were patrol ships. Loudspeakers echoed through the night. "Attention! A property of House Verith has escaped custody. All citizens report any sighting of a young hybrid female wearing a red-linked collar. Reward 10,000 credits. Lyra gasped and hid behind Mark's leg, shaking. "They're looking for me." Mark's mind raced. 10,000 credits, anyone would sell her out in a heartbeat. But not him. He looked down at her frightened eyes and whispered, "Don't worry, kid. They won't find you." He turned quickly into another street, blending with the crowd. The patrol drones passed overhead, searching. The night grew colder, darker, heavier. Mark could feel that his life had just changed, and there was no going back. As they disappeared into the fog, Lyra looked up one last time and whispered, Thank you, human. Mark didn't answer. He just held her hand tighter. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was more than a rescue. It was the beginning of something that would shake the whole galaxy. Mark's apartment was small, cold, and hidden behind an old repair shop. The walls were metal, the lights flickered, and the air smelled of oil and rust. It wasn't much, but to a man who had been unwanted for years, it was home. He opened the door quietly, making sure no patrol drones followed them. Then he helped the little alien girl, Lyra, step inside. She stood in the middle of the room, shivering. Her eyes darted around, at the broken table, the tools, the half-built machines, and the tiny heater in the corner. She looked ready to run at any sound. "You're safe here," Mark said softly, locking the door behind them. "No one knows this place." Lyra didn't reply. She just hugged her knees and sat on the floor. Her silver eyes looked lost, her face too pale for a child. The red light on her collar blinked weakly, humming every few seconds. Mark crouched down and pointed at it. "That thing, it hurts you, right?" She nodded slowly. "When she gets angry, she presses the control. It burns me until I scream." Mark clenched his fists. His jaw tightened and he felt his heart pound. He had seen slave collars before. Humans used to wear them long ago before the aliens banned them from most worlds. But to see it on a child, it was different. He reached for his toolbox. "I can try to turn it off," he said. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "No, if you touch it, she will know." "It will send a signal." Mark froze. "A signal?" She nodded again, whispering, "It tells her where I am." He sighed and sat beside her. "Then we need to find a way to block it." Lyra looked down. "Why are you helping me, human?" Everyone else turns away. Mark looked at her quietly for a moment. "Because no one should cry like you did," he said. "Not even an alien kid." For a long while there was silence. Only the sound of rain tapping against the window. Then slowly, Lyra relaxed her shoulders and leaned against the wall. Her eyelids grew heavy. Mark saw her fighting sleep, but she was too tired. Soon she drifted off, curled up on the floor like a small bird. Mark watched her sleep. She looked fragile but peaceful, like she hadn't rested in days. Something about her reminded him of his own daughter, the one he had lost during the war. He rubbed his face and whispered, "You're safe now, kid. I promise." But safety never lasted long in this world. The next morning, Mark woke to the sound of loud voices outside. He peeked through the window. 2 alien enforcers were talking to the shopkeeper downstairs. They were showing a hologram of Lyra's face. Her stepmother's voice came through the projection, calm but cold. "This half-breed child is property of House Verith. She is dangerous. Report her immediately if seen." Reward increased to 20,000 credits. Mark cursed under his breath. The whole sector would be hunting her now. He turned around quickly. Lyra was awake, sitting on the floor, watching him with fear. "They found us?" she whispered. "Not yet," he said. "But they're looking hard." She hugged herself, trembling. "She never stops. She always finds me." Mark knelt beside her. "Then we'll have to move before she does." He opened a secret hatch beneath the floor. Inside was an old smuggler's tunnel leading to the city's underbelly. Dark tunnels where no drones dared to fly. He packed a few tools, food bars, and water. Lyra hesitated. "You'll get in trouble because of me." Mark smiled sadly. "Kid, I've been in trouble my whole life. This time it's for a good reason." They climbed into the tunnel, closing the hatch behind them. The air was damp and cold, filled with echoes of dripping water and humming power cables. Lyra held Mark's hand tightly. As they moved deeper, she whispered, "She used to say humans were weak. That's why they lost the war. She said no human could ever protect anyone." Mark chuckled softly. "Then maybe it's time someone proved her wrong." For the first time, Lyra smiled, a tiny, shy smile, but real. It lit up her pale face. Hours later, they reached an old service lift that led to the cargo district. Mark wiped sweat from his forehead. "From here we can find a way off this planet. Maybe to the outer colonies. No one will know you there." But before he could finish, a loud siren echoed through the tunnels. Red lights flashed overhead. Lyra gasped. She found the signal. "She's coming." Mark grabbed her hand. "Run!" They sprinted through the tunnels as metal doors slammed shut behind them. The walls shook as drones broke through the vents. Sparks flew. Lyra stumbled and Mark picked her up, carrying her as the air filled with mechanical screams. They burst through the end of the tunnel, out into the cargo port, just as a transport ship was preparing to leave. Mark waved at the loading crew. "Emergency repair, let me aboard," he shouted. The alien workers hesitated, but before they could respond, an explosion ripped through the tunnel behind him. Smoke filled the air. Mark didn't wait. He jumped onto the ship's ramp with Lyra in his arms as the doors closed behind them. The engines roared. The ship lifted into the dark sky. Lyra buried her face in his chest, trembling. "She won't stop, will she?" Mark looked out the window as the city lights faded below. "No," he said quietly, "but neither will I." And for the first time, the runaway child fell asleep in someone's arms, not in fear, but in hope. The transport ship roared through the thick blue clouds of the alien world. The hull shook and the engines growled like thunder. Inside one of the cargo containers, Mark and Lyra hid between metal crates, breathing quietly. The air smelled of oil and hot steel. Every sound outside felt dangerous. Lyra sat close to Mark, clutching his sleeve. Her collar blinked faintly, the red light dim but still alive. "Are we safe now?" she whispered. Mark shook his head. "Not yet, kid. Not until we're far from this system." He checked the small scanner he had built from spare parts. It showed a blinking red dot, the signal from Lyra's collar still active. "Damn," he muttered under his breath. "They can track us." Lyra's eyes filled with worry. "She'll find us again?" "Not if I can help it," Mark said. "But we'll have to move fast when we land." The ship's engines changed tone. They were climbing higher now toward the atmosphere's edge. Through a small vent hole, Mark saw the stars starting to appear. Tiny lights, far but beautiful. Lyra stared too, eyes wide. "I've never seen space before," she said softly. "It's big." Mark smiled faintly. "Yeah, it makes you feel small, huh? But it's also freedom." She tilted her head. "Freedom?" "It means no one can own you," he said quietly. "No collars, no orders, just life on your own terms." Lyra nodded slowly, as if she was trying to imagine that world. But before she could answer, a sudden alarm blared through the ship. A metallic voice spoke from the intercom. "Warning, incoming Royal Fleet signal. Unregistered life forms detected on board." Mark's blood ran cold. "They found us," he said. The ship jolted violently. Outside, beams of red plasma streaked through space, striking the hull. The pilot screamed through the radio. "They're firing on us." "We've got a stowaway alert." Mark grabbed Lyra's hand. "Stay down." The container door burst open as a drone soldier floated inside. Its metal body glowed and its red eyes scanned the cargo. "Unauthorized humans detected," it said in a deep, emotionless voice. Mark swung a metal pipe at it, sparks flying as the pipe smashed against the drone's head. "Run, Lyra," he shouted. Lyra hesitated for only a second, then dashed between the crates. The drone fired a beam slicing through the wall beside her. Mark lunged forward, grabbed the weapon from the drone, and slammed it against the floor. The machine sparked, then exploded. But the damage was done. The explosion triggered the ship's emergency system. Alarms screamed, red lights blinked everywhere, and air began to hiss out of the cracks. Lyra screamed, "Mark!" as the pressure dropped. He reached her, covering her with his coat. The wind howled inside the cabin. "We have to get to the escape pods," he shouted over the noise. They ran through the narrow hallways, dodging sparks and falling metal. The ship tilted, engines dying. Mark kicked open a door marked "Emergency Evacuation." Inside, small pods lined the walls. Only one was working. He opened the hatch. "Get in." Lyra's eyes widened. "What about you?" "I'll launch it from here." "No," she cried, grabbing his hand. "I'm not leaving you." Before Mark could answer, the door behind them blew open. 2 alien guards stormed in, armor shining, plasma rifles ready. "There," one shouted. Mark pushed Lyra into the pod. "Go," but she refused to let go. Fear and tears filled her eyes. "You promised you wouldn't let them take me." He hesitated, heartbreaking. But before the guards could shoot, a strange blue light burst from Lyra's collar. It wasn't just glowing, it was alive. The light expanded, spreading across the room. The guards screamed as their weapons short-circuited. The walls bent and the lights exploded. Mark shielded his eyes as the energy wave threw everyone backward. When it was over, the guards lay unconscious, smoke rising from their armor. The collar around Lyra's neck was broken, split open like a cracked shell. Mark stared at her, stunned. What did you just do?" Lyra looked terrified. I don't know. It just happened when I got scared." Mark blinked, still catching his breath. "You did that?" She nodded weakly. "I didn't mean to," He looked around. The ship was falling apart, but the pod was still working. He grabbed her hand again. Then we really need to leave before they send more. Together, they climbed into the pod. Mark pressed the launch switch and the pod detached from the burning transport. Through the window, they saw the ship explode behind them, a bright flash fading into the endless black of space. The pod drifted silently for a moment. Lyra stared at the stars, her face pale but calm. "I hurt them," she whispered. "I didn't want to hurt anyone." Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. "You saved us. That's what matters." She turned to him, tears in her eyes. "What am I, Mark? Why do I have this power?" He looked at her quietly. "I don't know yet, kid. But I think we're going to find out soon." As the pod drifted toward a nearby moon, a red light flashed on the control panel, a signal from the Royal Fleet. They were tracking the pod. Mark's jaw tightened. He looked out at the stars and whispered, "Let them come. I'm not running anymore." The scene ended with the pod vanishing into the shadow of the moon, while the enemy ships followed close behind, hungry for revenge, and unaware that the little girl they hunted was more than just a runaway. She was a secret that could change the fate of two worlds. The escape pod landed hard on the surface of the moon. The crash shook the metal walls and dust covered the small window. For a moment, everything was silent except the soft hum of the cooling engines. Then a small cough broke the silence. Lyra sat up slowly, her silver hair messy, her collar cracked and smoking. Mark groaned beside her, his arm bleeding from a metal cut. He looked around and sighed. "Well, we're alive," he said. "That's a start." The pod's lights flickered, then died. Outside, the landscape was empty. Gray rocks, deep shadows, and a strange blue mist floating in the distance. It was a dead world, forgotten long ago. Mark checked the scanner. "No signals nearby," he said. "We're off their radar. For now." Lyra looked at him with worried eyes. "They'll still come, won't they?" Mark nodded slowly. "They won't stop until they find you." She looked down at the broken collar around her neck. "I didn't mean to hurt them," she whispered. "It just happened." Mark knelt beside her and gently touched the edge of the collar. The metal was melted from the inside. "That wasn't just a shockwave, kid. That was energy, real, powerful energy." Lyra's eyes shimmered in the dim light. "I don't understand. I was born weak. My stepmother said I had no real power." Mark frowned. She lied. He stood up, opened the hatch, and stepped outside. The air was thin but breathable. The sky was dark, filled with stars. In the distance, old ruins stood half buried under the dust, buildings made of white stone and strange symbols. "Come on," he said, reaching out his hand. "We need shelter." Lyra followed, clutching his hand tightly. As they walked, her steps left faint glowing prints on the ground, tiny silver lights that faded after a few seconds. Mark noticed it and whispered, "You're glowing." She looked down in surprise. "I don't know why." They reached the ruins, a fallen temple, cracked and covered in alien writing. Inside it was quiet and cold. Strange energy hummed in the air, like something old was still alive here. Mark made a small fire with parts from the escape pod. He sat near it, trying to clean his wound. Lyra sat across from him, staring at the floor. After a while, she asked softly, "Mark, do you think my real father was human?" He looked up, surprised. "Why do you ask?" "Before she broke my toy drone," Lyra said, voice shaking, "I heard her talking to someone. She said my father came from a blue world. She said he disappeared before I was born." Mark's heart tightened. "A blue world," he repeated. "That sounds like Earth." Lyra blinked. "Earth?" "It's where I was born," Mark said quietly. "Where all humans came from. But it's far, light years away." She stared at him, hope flickering in her eyes. "Maybe he was like you." "Maybe," Mark said. "And if that's true, then your blood might carry something special." He pulled out a small portable scanner from his bag. "Let me check something." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. Mark pricked her finger gently with a sterile needle and placed a drop of her silver-blue blood on the device. The screen blinked, showing strange patterns and numbers he had never seen. His eyes widened. This can't be right. What does it say?" she asked, nervous. "It says your blood has both human DNA and alien energy strands," he said slowly. "They're fused, like they were designed to connect." "Designed?" she whispered. "Yeah," he said. "Not born by chance. Someone made you this way." Lyra's hands shook. "Then I'm not real?" Mark shook his head. "No, kid. You're more real than anyone I've ever met. You're proof that we can be more than enemies. Her eyes filled with tears. She said I was a mistake. Mark looked at her firmly. You're not a mistake, Lyra. You're the future. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she smiled faintly, small, uncertain, but real. Just as the warmth began to settle, the ground trembled. A deep humming sound echoed through the ruins. Mark jumped up. What now? Lyra looked around, frightened. It's coming from under us. The ancient floor cracked open, and blue light spilled through the cracks. Symbols on the walls started to glow. Lyra's eyes went wide as the same glow spread through her veins. Mark, she whispered, I can feel something calling me. The ground split, revealing a hidden chamber below. Mark grabbed her hand. Stay behind me! But when she stepped closer to the light, the air around her changed. The symbols pulsed faster, reacting to her presence. The ruins were waking up. A deep voice echoed through the hall, mechanical, old and full of sorrow. DNA signature recognized. Hybrid protocol activated. Commander's bloodline confirmed. Mark froze. Commander's bloodline? What does that mean? Lyra's glow brightened. It's talking to me, she said softly. It knows me. The voice spoke again. Child of the Union Project, you are the key to peace between worlds. Mark's mind spun. Union Project? Lyra, your father wasn't just anyone. He was part of something huge. But before they could ask more, a loud alarm pierced the silence. A red light blinked on Mark's wrist scanner. Enemy ships entering orbit. They found us, he said. Lyra looked toward the sky, her silver eyes shining. Then we can't run anymore. Mark nodded, loading his weapon. No, this time we fight back. Outside, the night sky lit up with the glow of descending ships. The hunt was far from over, but now, for the first time, they had a secret that could turn everything upside down. The secret within her blood. The ruins trembled as alien ships pierced through the moon's sky. Red light swept across the dust plains, scanning every rock and shadow. Mark and Lyra ran through the broken temple, their footsteps echoing through the glowing walls. The wind roared outside, mixed with the deep hum of engines. They're here, Mark said, looking up. We have to move now. Lyra's eyes shone faintly in the dark. They'll never stop, she said, her voice soft but full of fear. She'll find me. Mark gritted his teeth. Let her try. They slipped through the ruins, heading for the back exit. But before they could reach it, a beam of red light struck the ground in front of them, cutting off their path. From the smoke, tall figures appeared. Alien soldiers in silver armor, weapons glowing blue. Mark pulled Lyra behind a broken pillar. Stay down, he whispered. The soldiers surrounded them. One of them, larger than the others, spoke in a cold, distorted voice. Surrender the hybrid child. Your resistance ends here. Mark lifted his weapon, aiming it at the leader. You'll have to go through me first. The soldier tilted his head. You are only human. Yeah, Mark said, smirking. And that's your problem. He fired. The blast hit one of the soldiers, knocking him down. But the others fired back, forcing Mark to dive behind cover. The air filled with plasma bolts, explosions, and dust. Lyra covered her ears, tears running down her cheeks. Mark, she cried. He grunted, reloading. I'm okay. Just stay there. But there were too many of them. One soldier threw an energy net that exploded against the ground, trapping Mark's legs. He fell hard, the weapon sliding out of his hand. Before he could free himself, the leader raised his blaster and fired. A shockwave struck Mark's chest, throwing him back. Mark. Lyra screamed, running toward him. The soldiers surrounded her, their weapons glowing. She tried to fight, but her small hands couldn't do anything. The leader grabbed her arm roughly and pressed a control on his wrist. A hologram flickered in the air. A tall, elegant alien woman appeared, her eyes sharp and her smile cruel. Lyra froze. Stepmother? The woman's voice dripped with poison. Ah, there you are, my little disgrace. I warned you what would happen if you ran away again. Mark coughed, trying to stand. Let her go. The woman's cold gaze turned toward him. You must be the human scavenger who stole my property. You have caused me much trouble. She's not your property, Mark said weakly, his voice trembling with anger. She's a child. The woman laughed softly. A child? No, she's an experiment. A failed one. Lyra shook her head, trembling. That's not true. My father loved me. He said I was special. The woman's expression hardened. Your father was a fool. He mixed his weak human blood with ours and thought it would bring peace. It only brought shame, Tears streamed down Lyra's face. "You're lying!" Mark struggled against the energy net. "Lyra, don't listen to her." The stepmother turned her gaze back to him. "You humans never learn when to stay silent." She nodded to the soldiers. "End him." Two soldiers stepped forward, aiming their blasters at Mark. Lyra screamed, "No!" and threw herself between them. For a second, everything went still. Her collar, cracked and half-broken, began to glow again, blue light spreading from her neck to her fingertips. The soldiers hesitated. Mark whispered, "Lyra, don't..." But it was too late. The light exploded from her body like a pulse. The soldiers were thrown backward, their armor sparking. The stepmother's hologram flickered violently. When the light faded, Lyra collapsed to her knees, shaking. "Please," she sobbed, "don't hurt him. Please, human, be my dad. Don't leave me alone again." Her voice echoed across the ruins, soft but full of pain. The alien soldiers froze, unsure what to do. Even the leader stepped back slightly. Something in her plea, something pure, cut through the silence. Mark crawled forward, his hands shaking until he reached her. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm here, kid." "I'm not going anywhere." The stepmother's face twisted in rage. "You dare defy me? You think love will save you?" Mark looked up at the hologram, his eyes full of fire. It already did. Before the woman could respond, the ruins around them began to shake again. The ground split open, blue light bursting through the cracks. The ancient symbols glowed brighter than before. The stepmother's hologram flickered. What is happening?" Lyra looked up weakly. "You shouldn't have come here. The temple knows me now." Suddenly, pillars of blue energy shot into the sky, hitting the alien ships above. The fleet began to fall apart, struck by invisible force. The soldiers on the ground panicked. "Retreat," one shouted. "It's the Union signal. It's activating." Mark grabbed Lyra and held her close as debris rained from the ceiling. "Hang on!" he shouted. The energy roared around them, wrapping them in light. The soldiers vanished. The hologram shattered and the temple began to collapse. Mark shielded Lyra with his body as the light swallowed them both. When the noise faded, they found themselves inside a strange, glowing chamber, safe, untouched. Lyra was unconscious in his arms, her skin glowing faintly like starlight. Mark held her close, whispering, "You're not alone anymore. Lyra, you've got a dad now." Above them, the last echo of the stepmother's voice faded into static, filled with fear and disbelief. "No, it can't be. She's awakening." And then, silence. The war wasn't over, but something had changed. The hunted child had become the key, and the man who saved her had become the spark of something far greater than survival. Together, they were no longer running. They were beginning. The chamber was alive. Blue lights flowed through the walls like rivers, and strange symbols moved as if breathing. Mark stood in the center, holding Lyra in his arms. She was still unconscious, her skin glowing faintly with soft silver light. The air around them hummed, filled with quiet power. "Come on, kid," Mark whispered, brushing the dust from her face. "You've got to wake up." Lyra stirred, her small hand twitching. Her silver eyes slowly opened, dazed and shining. "Mark?" she whispered weakly. He smiled, relief flooding his face. "Yeah, I'm here." Lyra looked around the glowing chamber, confused. "Where are we?" "I don't know," Mark said, glancing at the walls. "But I think it's part of that ancient temple. It saved us somehow." As if hearing him, the lights on the walls brightened. A deep mechanical voice filled the air again, calm and powerful. "System reboot complete. Union core active. Commander's descendant confirmed." Mark frowned. That voice again. Lyra looked up at the ceiling. "It's talking to me," she said softly. "It knows who I am." The voice spoke once more. "Your power is awakening, child. The Union was built for peace, not war. You must finish what your father began." Mark's eyes widened. "Your father started this?" Lyra nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "He tried to unite humans and aliens. He said both sides could live together. But the Empire called him a traitor. They killed him," Mark clenched his fists. "Then we'll make sure they regret it." The chamber's floor began to shift. Panels opened, revealing an old control platform covered in dust. Mark helped Lyra stand as the platform lit up under her feet. Streams of data and holographic images filled the air, maps of the galaxy, fleets of ships, and one symbol at the center. Two hands, one human and one alien joined together. "This was your father's dream," Mark said quietly. Lyra nodded. "And now it's ours." Suddenly the calm light turned red. The voice warned, "Alert. Enemy fleet approaching lunar orbit. Estimated time to impact 10 minutes. Mark cursed under his breath. They're back already. He looked at the holographic maps, his mind racing. If this thing is a control system, maybe it can defend itself. Lyra placed her glowing hand on the console. I can try. Energy pulsed through her fingers. The chamber responded instantly. Machines waking up after centuries of silence. Giant metal panels shifted above them, and outside the ruins trembled. The moon's surface cracked open, revealing hidden towers of blue light reaching toward the sky. Mark stared in awe. You're waking up an entire defense system. Lyra's voice trembled. It's not me. It's listening to my blood. It thinks I'm him, my father. The ground rumbled again. Outside, alien ships began firing down toward the moon, their plasma beams striking the glowing towers. The impacts shook everything, but the towers held. Energy shields burst to life, blocking the attacks. Mark grabbed his weapon and checked the chamber doors. They'll try to land troops. We have to protect this place. Lyra looked at him with fear. Mark, you can't fight all of them. He smiled faintly. You'd be surprised how stubborn humans can be. She wanted to argue, but then the voice spoke again. Energy transfer available. Bond synchronization at 47%. Continue? Lyra blinked. Bond synchronization? Mark looked at her confused. What's that? Before she could answer, the platform pulsed beneath their feet. Blue energy wrapped around both of them like mist. Their hearts beat in sync, their minds filled with the same warmth. Mark felt it, a strange connection, like her heartbeat was inside him. He gasped. What is this? Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. It's the Union Bond. My father used it to share power with humans he trusted. The voice confirmed. Bond complete. Dual control activated. Suddenly, Mark felt the strength surge through him. His wounds healed, his vision sharpened, and his weapon glowed with blue light. Lyra raised her hands and energy sparks danced between her fingers. Above them, the sky burned red as the enemy ships descended. Ready? Mark asked. Lyra nodded. Let's show them what humans and hybrids can do together. The first wave of soldiers landed outside the temple, armored and armed. They stormed toward the entrance, shouting commands. Mark took position near the doorway, firing bursts of blue plasma that tore through their shields. His aim was perfect, steady and fierce. Lyra stepped beside him, her palms glowing. She sent waves of light that knocked drones out of the air and melted enemy weapons. The ground shook with each blast, but she didn't stop. The soldiers screamed as their systems failed. The blue towers fired energy beams into the sky, striking the ships above. One by one, the enemy vessels exploded into bright fireballs. Mark laughed breathlessly. We're winning! Lyra smiled faintly, sweat running down her face. No, we're surviving. But then, the stepmother's voice echoed from the sky, cold and furious. You think you can stop me, child? I created you. I can unmake you. Lyra's eyes widened. She's here. A massive ship appeared above the moon, black and gold, larger than all the others. It hovered over the battlefield like a monster. Its shadow covered everything. Mark loaded his rifle again. Then we end this today. Lyra looked at him with trembling lips. If I don't make it, he cut her off sharply. Don't say that. You're not dying today. You're living. They stood side by side, the human and the hybrid, bathed in blue light as the Empire's flagship opened its cannons. The temple's systems powered up again, glowing brighter than before. Lyra reached out her hand. Together? Mark took it firmly. Always. The final battle began, the uprising of two souls against an empire built on hate. The sky above the moon burned with fire. Fragments of destroyed ships fell like shooting stars, lighting the darkness. The ground shook under the force of explosions, but inside the glowing temple, two figures still stood, Mark the human and Lyra, the little alien girl whose silver eyes shone like stars. The Empire's flagship hovered above them, huge and dark, its golden hull gleaming like a god of war. From its bridge, the alien stepmother watched with cold rage. End them, she commanded. Hundreds of drones launched from the ship, diving toward the surface like a black storm. Mark looked at Lyra. We can't let them reach the core, he said. If they destroy it, everything your father built will die. Lyra nodded. Her small hands glowed brighter than before. Then we fight together, like he wanted. They ran out of the temple onto the open plains. The blue towers around them pulsed with energy, connecting to the core below. The air crackled with power, and the moon itself seemed alive now, like it was answering Lyra's call. Mark raised his weapon, its barrel glowing with Union energy. The first wave of drones swooped down, firing plasma beams. He moved fast, rolling through the dust, firing back with deadly accuracy. Each shot tore through metal wings and armor. Lyra lifted her arms and light burst from her palms. Her power danced across the battlefield like lightning, cutting through the drones one by one. The explosions painted the night with color, red, gold, and blue. But for every drone they destroyed, 10 more came. Mark gritted his teeth. "They just keep coming!" The temple voice echoed again through the storm. "Power reserves at 60%. Shield stability critical." Lyra's breathing grew heavy. "Mark, I can't hold it much longer." He turned to her, sweat and dust on his face. "You're doing great, kid. Just a little more." Then from the sky, a massive energy beam struck the ground near them. The explosion threw Mark backward. He hit the dirt hard, his weapon flying out of reach. His ears rang. Through the smoke he saw her, descending from the flagship like a dark angel, the Stepmother. She was tall, wrapped in black armor with gold veins of light. Her eyes burned with cruel fire. She landed gracefully, her boots sinking into the dust. "So my little failure finally learned to fight," she said coldly. "How touching," Lyra stood, trembling but defiant. "You're not my mother," she said quietly. "You never were," the woman smiled. "And yet I made you. Every drop of your blood belongs to me." Mark forced himself up, limping toward them. "No," he growled. "She belongs to no one." The Stepmother raised her hand, and dark energy formed around her fingers. "You humans never know when to kneel." She fired a blast of power. Mark jumped in front of Lyra. The hit slammed into his chest, throwing him across the ground. His body rolled, motionless for a moment. "Mark!" Lyra screamed. The Stepmother laughed softly. "See? Weak." But then the ground under her feet began to glow blue again, brighter, stronger. Lyra fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Please," she whispered, her hands shaking. "Don't take him too." Something answered her, something deep inside the planet. The blue light pulsed with her heartbeat. The temple's voice spoke once more, louder this time. "Bond energy at maximum. Life link detected. Transfer initiated." Mark's body glowed where he lay. The wounds on his chest began to close. He gasped, taking in air again. "Lyra?" he said weakly. She turned, crying and smiling at the same time. "You came back." He struggled to his feet, looking at her glowing hands. "What did you do?" "I shared my power," she said softly. "Like my father did. You're part of the Union now." Mark stared at her, speechless. Then he nodded slowly. "Then let's end this together," the Stepmother snarled, furious. "You think you can defeat me, child of failure?" Lyra stood tall, her eyes blazing silver. "No," she said. "I'm not a failure. I'm the proof he was right." She spread her arms wide, and a wave of light exploded from her body. It hit the Stepmother's armor, cracking it. The woman screamed as her power turned against her. Mark fired his weapon, hitting her center chest plate. The armor shattered. The Stepmother fell to her knees, her voice breaking. "You can't unite them. It's impossible." Lyra looked down at her with calm eyes. "Peace isn't impossible. You just never believed in it." The woman's body dissolved into light, fading into the air like smoke. The storm above quieted. The remaining ships stopped firing. The entire fleet hovered in silence, leaderless. Mark looked around. "Is it over?" Lyra listened to the wind. "Yes," she whispered. "But now we have to rebuild." The temple's voice softened. Union core stabilized. Peace protocol restored. The towers dimmed and the ground grew still. The battle was done. Mark sat down, exhausted. Lyra walked to his side and sat beside him. The sky slowly cleared, revealing 1,000 stars. He looked at her and smiled. "Your father would be proud." Lyra smiled back. "He'd be proud of you too." Mark laughed quietly. "Me? I'm just a broken human scavenger." "Not anymore," she said softly. "You're my dad now." For a long moment, they just sat there side by side, watching the stars rise over the quiet moon. The world that once hunted them was silent now, waiting for something new. Mark stood up and looked at the horizon. "You know," he said, "if your father built this place to bring peace, maybe we should finish what he started." Lyra nodded, her eyes glowing faintly. "Then let's build a home where humans and aliens aren't afraid of each other." He smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then that's our promise, Lyra. A new world, one built on hope, not hate. The camera of fate pulled away, showing the two tiny figures standing in the glowing ruins beneath the wide silver sky. A human and a half-alien girl, a father and daughter, and the first dawn of a united galaxy.